Hey there, English speakers. Jesse here from Sweet Academy. And in today's episode of the More Than English podcast, number 2, I'm going to show you a simple trick to build and increase your vocabulary with minimal effort. How does that sound? Another way you could really increase your vocabulary and your conversation skills is to sign up for a class with me. Go to sweetacademy.teachable.com and click at the top one-on-one or group classes. You can sign up for whatever time works best for you. Sign up for a class. But if you're a member of my English Black Belt program, you get discounted classes just for being an English Black Belt member. And you'll get access to our Facebook community, and we can work together and decide on your level in the Black Belt community, in the Black Belt system program. I have different belt rankings based on your English level. So it follows a martial arts style belt system, right? If you know anything about me, you know that I like martial arts. I'm a lifelong martial artist, and I'm a fan of mixed martial arts. And the jiu-jitsu belt ranking system is phenomenal. I really like it. And I think it's appropriate in language because I have white belts. We all start at a white belt level. Once you can communicate on a certain level, you can talk about simple, basic things without much hesitation and without many mistakes, many basic mistakes. You reach up to a blue belt level. Once you can start having more extended conversations about a more variety of topic and start using these phrasal verbs that I teach, then you work your way up to a purple belt. And then once you start really making the language your own and using idioms and phrasal verbs smoothly and having these conversational details that native speakers use, right? And you're still not at native speaker status. You still maybe have your accent. You still make a few mistakes, but you're using the language more creatively and making it more your own. Then you're working up to a brown belt level. And then you work your way all the way up to basically fluency, and you can talk about really any topic you could talk about in your native language or other topics, right? Maybe even more topics than you talk about in your native language because maybe you talk about different things. Either way, the language is not an issue. Maybe the topic of conversation is an issue, but the language is not an issue. That's at the black belt level, and we just kind of maintain your level and work on the details. So, if you'd like to find out more about the Black Belt program, my English Black Belt program, then go to sweetacademy.teachable.com and click on Become More Fluent Today. That'll take you and give you more information. Or visit my Facebook pages at Sweet Academy English and at Jesse Teacher. Okay, let's move on to the lesson. I like to pre-teach some of the vocabulary that you'll hear in the podcast because as I'm doing this, I'm talking about a topic in my most natural way. I'm using idioms. I'm throwing in phrasal verbs. I'm talking as if I'm talking to a native speaker. So before that, I want to just talk about and teach, pre-teach, we call it, some of these expressions that may be new to you. So, number 1, vice versa. Vice versa. Vice versa means simply to do something the opposite way, right? And it still works. So you can do something one way and it works, or you can do something the opposite way and it works. In my podcast, you'll hear me say, We're applying how we learn English to also learning other things in life, or vice versa, how we apply learning other things in life to our English learning, right? We're doing two things. We're doing both. And one can lead to the other, or the other can lead to the one. Vice versa. Vice versa. Do you have a similar one in your language? Number 2, to see something from both sides of the spectrum. This is to have a more wide perspective, right? To see both sides of an argument, like both extremes. Let me say the expression again. To see something from both sides of the spectrum. To see something from both sides of the spectrum. It means see it from the opposite view. And in my podcast, you'll hear me say, I kind of see language learning from both sides of the spectrum, as a language teacher and as a learner. A spectrum is the device that you shine light through, and it's the spectrum of colors, really, like a rainbow. So on both sides are the opposite extremes. To see something from both sides of the spectrum. Next is a very natural expression. Let's face it. Let's face it. And you say this when you're about to say something honest, but maybe it's not pleasing to hear, maybe. So it's the same as saying, really, let's be honest. Let's be honest. Let's talk real, right? But the intonation, follow me. Let's face it. Let's face it. And how I use it in the podcast, I say, let's face it. Teachers put in a lot of time, a lot of effort. They do many things to have engaging classes, but let's face it. A lot of these activities don't apply to the real world. Let's face it. Let's be honest. Next, if the internet goes down, it means the internet stopped working. In the podcast, I say, what do you say when you have to call customer service because the internet went down? Went down. Notice I made it past tense. Next, exponentially. To increase something a lot. To increase something a lot. So something multiplies. It increases a lot. And this is an adverb. So you have to use it to describe a verb. In my example, I say, it's helping me exponentially as a teacher. Helping me exponentially. And this is learning a language. Learning a language is helping me exponentially as a teacher. And being a teacher is helping me exponentially be a father. So it's like a circle of life, right? Next, practice what you preach. Practice what you preach. This is a good idiom, especially when somebody tells you to do something, but they do the opposite. Then you can tell them, you should practice what you preach. That means you should do what you tell other people to do. You should practice what you preach. In my sentence, I say, I tell my students to do it, so I should practice what I preach. Next. That's beside the point. And the next one, that's neither here nor there. These both mean similar. Let's go to, that's beside the point. That's beside the point. That's beside the point. This is an expression to say that something is irrelevant, right? When somebody mentions something irrelevant, or if you're telling a story and you get sidetracked, you talk about something else for a bit, and then you can come back to the story and say, well, that's beside the point. And the opposite of that, I guess you would say, The point is, and then talk about what you're talking about. And another one that says something's irrelevant is, that's neither here nor there. That's neither here nor there. That's neither here nor there. And this is also, it's just a way, it's like a colorful way and a fun way to say it's irrelevant. If you say something's irrelevant, it can kind of sound a little aggressive in a way. Not aggressive, but it's just not nice to hear. It's too direct. But that's neither here nor there. That's a more fun way to say it. That's neither here nor there. Let's stay focused, right? And in my example, I use them both together. You'll hear me say, my bag isn't like a traditional fanny pack. It's a fashionable leather one. But that's beside the point. That's neither here nor there, right? It doesn't matter what my bag looks like. The point that I was trying to say is keep a notebook in the bag, right? Okay. Next, a habit to get into. A habit to get into. And I want to focus here to get into. To get into something is to start it, right? I'm getting into yoga. I'm getting into poker. You know, I'm starting to watch it and read about it. I'm getting into playing the guitar, right? I'm playing it every day, right? Getting into. And getting into noun or getting into ing. In my example, I say, repeating what you hear in English will be a useful habit to get into. You'll hear me say that. Repeating what you hear in English will be a useful habit to get into. To get into. Next, to say something under your breath. That's to whisper to yourself. You just kind of whisper so only you can hear yourself, or, you know, intend to only hear yourself. The example I say, sometimes I will repeat an expression I hear under my breath. I will repeat it under my breath. Like that. Under your breath. On a side note, you use this to introduce a topic that's not in the main topic, right? It's a little irrelevant, but it's something you feel that you have to mention. On a side note, and I say, on a side note, it's good motivation for other people to help you, right? My main idea was talking about the benefits of note-taking and how it helps me remember. But on a side note, it's also good motivation for others to help you. On a side note, it's like a minor point to your main story. And in one ear and out the other. This is very useful if you're a teacher or a parent, because your kids or your students probably have this happen all the time. What you say goes in one ear and out the other. That's the difference basically between hearing and listening. They may hear, yeah, but they're not listening, right? You hear it, but you don't pay attention to it. And so what I'll say in the podcast is you'll start picking up on some expressions that normally would go in one ear and out the other that you'd hear. But then if you keep it in mind that you want to write it down, it won't go in one ear and out the other. It'll stick in your mind, hopefully. That's the point. That's the goal anyway. So these are some expressions that you're going to hear in this week's episode, number 2, because it's not English, it's more than English. Let's go. Hey there, English speakers. Jesse here from sweetacademy.teachable.com, helping you to get the job, pass the exam, and travel the world. Welcome to the second episode of the More Than English podcast, where we're talking about more than just English. and applying really how we learn English to other things in life, or vice versa, how we apply other things in life to our language learning. And I'm in a unique position because I am a language teacher and I'm a language student, right? So I kind of see language learning from both sides of the spectrum, right? I teach it, I prepare lessons, I help students understand or, try to understand how to learn English and how to apply certain things. But also, I'm living in Spain now, and I used to live in Korea. So I see it from that side too, as the language learner. What kinds of things works and what kinds of things don't work, right? What kinds of activities in the classroom actually help in the real world and what kinds of activities don't help? Because let's face it, teachers, we put in a lot of time, we have a lot of meetings, we talk with other teachers, we get a lot of ideas, go to conferences to have engaging classes. But as a learner, I realize now that a lot of these activities, they're cool and they're fun and they're engaging in the classroom, but it's kind of difficult to apply those ideas in the real world when you actually need to communicate this language. Let's say English, because you're probably learning English. So the story changes once we get out of the classroom and into the real world, whether we're traveling and we have to ask for directions to our hotel, or whether we're living in another country and we have to go shopping or go to the doctor or call customer service because our internet went down or anything like that. When we're meeting friends, how do you apply what we learn in the classroom when you're actually out with a group of people and meeting new friends in that language and in that country, right? That's the kind of perspective that I have now. And it's helping me exponentially as a teacher. And at the same time, seeing it from this perspective as a teacher is helping me learn as a student too. So today I want to give you one trick that I've recently discovered and I'm recently using because I actually told my students to do it. And I thought, well, I should probably practice what I preach. And I should actually try to do it too. So I'll tell you what that trick is and I'll tell you what I'm doing here. So I have a side pouch. It's kind of like a fanny pack. If you know what a fanny pack is, it's a bag. It's kind of like a bag. It's kind of like a wallet or a small bag that you wrap around your waist and click it and you kind of carry it around your waist. They're used heavily in tourism for tourists when you travel because they're so useful, right? You put your money, your keys, your wallet, your passport in there, whatever. So I don't have a traditional fanny pack. It's kind of a more fashionable leather one, but that's beside the point. That's neither here nor there. The point is that in that bag, whether you have a bag or a book bag or a backpack or a purse or anything that you carry with you, carry a small notebook in there with you. I carry a small, tiny notebook that fits inside the bag because living here in Spain, I get a lot of natural language. Obviously, when you're learning a language and you're watching a movie in English, let's say, or watching TV, don't just watch it for entertainment or watch the same episode twice. The first one for entertainment and the second time to learn expressions or vocabulary or just to pick up on how we use our intonation, how does the intonation of a natural English conversation go? How does it flow? Right? We have certain intonations that we use in your language and my language and all languages. We have a certain rhythm, right? So it's important to figure out and to catch the rhythm that English speakers use when they speak, because that'll help with your pronunciation and your intonation, and it will just be a useful tool and a useful habit to get into. Pick up on the rhythm and even try to repeat some of the things that you hear. When I am watching Spanish television, sometimes if they say something, a short expression, I'll repeat that under my breath, kind of like say, mira lo que he hecho. Mira lo que he hecho. Right? When I hear something, right? That's under your breath, right? When you say something under your breath, you kind of like whisper it to yourself. So that also happens when I'm out on the street. When I'm out on the street, I hear someone saying something. If I like it, or if it's an expression that I hear a lot, I'll repeat it in my head. And let's go back to the notebook. I have literally done this. I'll stop in the middle of the street when I hear somebody say something. I'll repeat it to myself. I'll stop, take out my notebook, take out my pen, and in the middle of the street, I'll open it up and write down that expression or that vocabulary word or anything new that I want to learn and use and apply in my language, right? When I'm trying to use it. And on a side note, it's good motivation, because it's motivation. I've noticed since I've done this that my friends and even my wife have been more active in trying to teach me words, right? They're like, oh, that's a good word to put in your notebook, right? So it goes from just trying to communicate the easiest way to trying to help me and put something into my notebook. And it's motivating. It feels good. So that's my suggestion for you today. And that will help your vocabulary and your general expressions that you hear, right? How we group words together, right? You'll start picking up on phrasal verbs and idioms and different expressions that normally you'll hear, but it might go in one ear and out the other. You might recognize it and say, yeah, I recognize that. But then you don't use it, right? But if you have concentrated focus on trying to learn these to use them, that's the point, isn't it? Learn these to use them, writing them in your notebook. Then you're listening to it. You're taking a second to think about it. And you're writing it down. You're using your body, your muscles, your physical self to put this new expression or this new word down. And that will help a lot. And it'll help you just be more mindful of trying to learn. Be an active learner. That's what this does. It helps you become an active learner, right? So that's my trick. That's my tip for today. That's something I'm doing personally in my life. And if you're doing this, share it with me. Take a photo of a page that you've completed and share it with me on my Facebook page at Jesse Teacher or at Sweet Academy English. And show me the progress you're making. Show me what you're learning. That'd be great. Be as active in your learning as possible. And this works with anything, a language or an instrument or anything that you're learning or trying to improve on, right? Have a notebook and write it down. I also write down ideas if I have ideas for podcasts or of classes or of videos or anything. I write those down. I write them down in a chaotic way. It's kind of like if you've seen the movie A Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe, and he writes in the air like a crazy person, because he is, but I kind of do that same thing on my whiteboard or on my window. Well, maybe that makes me a crazy person too. I don't know. But anyway, it works. And if it works, do it. That's the point. Okay. Thank you for listening to this rant. Thank you for subscribing and following me. And if you'd like a class with me, go to sweetacademy.teachable.com and sign up for a class. Soon to be just sweetacademy.com. But sign up for a class and we can improve your English together. It's a beautiful thing. So check that out. And thank you for listening. Do something nice for somebody today before they do it to you. Pay it forward. Be good or be good at it. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.